At 50 years old, my grandfather walked 12 kilometers every single day, and he never set foot inside a gym his entire life. His generation never exercised, yet studies from Duke University and the NIH show they moved 70% more than we do every single day. Over 60 million Americans are currently living with age-related muscle loss, more than the entire combined population of California and New York State. And the greatest paradox is this: most of them don't know they have it, because the first symptom isn't pain. It's the silence of muscle that's slowly disappearing. Scientists have known this for 20 years. But the real question isn't why muscles shrink. It's why previous generations never struggled with this the way we do today. To understand that, we need to go back to what 20th century Americans did every single day, without ever calling it exercise. For 300,000 years of human evolution, the human body was designed for constant, continuous movement, not for high-intensity exercise, followed by 8 hours of stillness. Your muscles are not just engines that move you. They are the largest endocrine organ in your body, secreting dozens of proteins that keep your heart, brain, and bones functioning correctly. After age 30, the body begins losing roughly 1 to 2% of muscle mass every year, a process medicine calls sarcopenia. From the Greek, meaning poverty of flesh, it is normal to lose some strength with age, but it is not normal to lose up to 40% of muscle mass before age 75, yet that is the modern American reality. 50 years ago, Americans walked an average of 15,000 steps per day, simply by living their normal daily lives. Today, the average American takes only 3,000 to 4,000 steps per day, according to CDC data from 2023. We are not lazier. The architecture of daily life has changed, from walkable towns to car-dependent suburbs where every errand requires getting in a vehicle. An American farmer in 1950 burned approximately 4,000 calories per day through physical labor without ever setting a fitness goal. The line between normal aging and a warning sign is not drawn at age. It is drawn at how much muscle remains and how fast it is disappearing. A 2019 Mayo Clinic study followed 3,000 older adults for 10 years and found those who maintained higher muscle mass lived an average of 8 years longer than those who did not. 8 years, not 8 months. 8 years is enough to watch a grandchild graduate college, or enough time to take every trip around the world you ever promised yourself. And now is the moment to ask, what was actually happening inside the bodies of people who never went to a gym, yet never experienced muscle loss? The mechanism behind it is more complex and more fascinating than any fitness program you have ever heard described. Your body does not distinguish between walking for exercise and walking because you need to buy flour. It only registers the mechanical signal. That is the foundation of the entire story we are about to explore. In 1970, a group of Harvard researchers began tracking 17,000 male alumni over several decades, one of the largest and longest studies of movement and longevity ever conducted. Their results challenged nearly everything the fitness industry has been selling you for the past 40 years. What they found was that the human body does not need exercise, it needs movement, and those two things are not the same thing at all. Exercise is a high-intensity, short-duration, interrupted activity that we add to our lives as a supplement. Movement is what the body was designed to do continuously, distributed throughout the day, at low to moderate intensity for many hours. A 2011 Maastricht University study found that sitting still for 6 consecutive hours reduced insulin sensitivity by 40%, even in people who exercised at the gym every single day. Think about this differently. You can run for 1 hour every morning and still leave your body in a dangerous metabolic state if you sit still for the remaining 10 hours of the day. This is what many older Americans' doctors still have not communicated clearly enough, because medicine is still calibrating how to convey this information to patients. Muscles shrink through a mechanism called use it or lose it, And that mechanism operates on a protein principle. Your body breaks down muscle protein for energy far faster when those muscles are not being regularly recruited. Muscle cells have an average lifespan of roughly 15 years, and they need to be regularly activated to send protein synthesis signals. Otherwise, they atrophy and are not replaced at an equivalent rate. Consider this. Your heart pumped enough blood last year to fill more than 140 standard Olympic pools. And it never needed you to think about it for a single second, but the muscles in your limbs need you to use them every single day. Americans living in small towns in the 1950s had no concept of the gym, but they walked to the grocery store, climbed stairs, carried bags, tended gardens, repaired their homes, and moved on their feet throughout the entire day. This was not fitness culture. This was physiological foundation, and that difference changes everything. Myokines are the group of hormones that muscles secrete when they are active, and they regulate inflammation, protect the brain, control blood sugar, and even suppress the growth of certain types of cancer cells. Put another way, every time you stand up and walk for 5 minutes, you are commanding your entire endocrine system to activate in a way that no currently existing drug can replicate. A 2017 University of Copenhagen study found that the leg muscles function as the second heart of the body because every step creates a pumping force that returns blood to the heart more efficiently. Older adults with leg muscle atrophy do not only lose mobility, they also lose that secondary circulatory pump, increasing strain on the heart and raising the risk of congestive heart failure. For millions of older Americans reading their echocardiogram results alone in a hospital waiting room, the numbers on that paper are not just data. They are a question about how many days they have left to live fully. But the story of muscle does not stop at the heart and circulation. It goes directly into the brain through a pathway that very few people know exists. When muscles contract during movement, they release a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which researchers have described as fertilizer for the brain. BDNF stimulates the formation of new neurons in the hippocampus, the region of the brain controlling memory and spatial orientation, even after the age of 65. A 2011 University of Illinois study measured the brains of older adults who walked regularly and found their hippocampus grew by 2% per year in volume, while the brains of sedentary adults shrank by an equivalent amount. In plain language, a 70-year-old who walks 30 minutes each day can have a larger and younger memory center in their brain than a 55-year-old who sits for most of the day. This is not magic. This is biochemistry. And Americans living in small towns 50 years ago were doing this every single day without any knowledge of the science behind it. But the picture is not only beautiful, because as muscles atrophy over years and a person becomes less active, a negative feedback loop begins that is extremely difficult to break. Weakened muscles make walking more tiring, which leads to less walking, which causes further muscle weakness, which raises the risk of falling, which increases fear of movement, which reduces activity even more. According to the CDC, falls are the leading cause of injury death among Americans over 65, and more than 3 million people visit emergency rooms each year due to falling. 3 million people, more than the entire combined population of Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore, all in a single year, all because of a fall. And what most people do not know is that the vast majority of these falls are preventable through maintaining leg muscle strength and balance, two things that can be improved at any age. Now let us return to the first question. How much did older Americans actually walk every single day? Anthropologists from Stanford University studied step count data from thousands of individuals across multiple generations and calculated that people living traditional pre-industrial lifestyles averaged 12 to 17,000 steps per day, 12 to 17,000 steps. Not in a gym, not during a morning run, simply from living their ordinary daily life every single day. Compare that number to the modern American average of 3,000 to 4,000 steps, and you immediately see how much movement we have quietly removed from our lives without even noticing. That is roughly 10,000 steps per day removed from our lives every day over several decades. And the body is paying for that in ways that medicine is still trying to fully quantify. Muscles are not just what keep you upright. They are the largest amino acid reservoir in the body, the emergency fuel reserve that your body draws from during illness, surgery, or prolonged stress. An older adult entering the hospital for hip replacement surgery with pre-existing muscle loss will recover significantly more slowly and face substantially higher complication rates than someone with good muscle mass, according to a 2019 Journal of Orthopedic Surgery study. In the medical world, this is called functional reserve, and the person with less muscle has less reserve to draw upon when a medical crisis actually arrives. Older Americans today face a dual reality. They are living longer than ever before, yet they are entering the final decades of life with less muscle than any previous generation. Lifespan is increasing, but health span, the number of years lived without depending on caregivers, is not increasing at the same rate. According to 2022 CDC data, the average American now lives 12 to 14 years at the end of their life with at least one serious functional limitation. 12 to 14 years. As long as both high school and college combined. Not years of acute illness, but years of no longer being able to do the things you want to do on your own terms. And now, research is showing that a significant portion of those lost years could be prevented by preserving muscle mass, something the previous generation of Americans did without any conscious effort at all. That brings us to a core question. Does the aging body actually retain the ability to rebuild muscle? Or does that process end after a certain age? Science says yes. Even 80-year-olds can significantly increase muscle mass and strength within 12 weeks with the right intervention, according to the landmark 1994 Tufts University study led by Dr. Maria Fiataroni. Muscle in an 80-year-old can still grow. It simply does so more slowly, and it needs sufficient protein and the right level of mechanical stimulation to do it. The specific risk factor for older Americans is not just inactivity, it is also insufficient protein intake, because many of them still eat according to the low-fat dietary guidelines popular in the 1980s, but with insufficient protein to maintain muscle. But the most dangerous thing is not insufficient protein or insufficient exercise in isolation, it is their combination. Low movement plus low protein plus physiological aging creates a synergistic effect that accelerates muscle loss far faster than any single factor alone. This is why a person can appear healthy on the outside, have a normal BMI, yet be experiencing rapid internal muscle loss with no obvious warning signs whatsoever. Science calls this sarcopenic obesity. The body may have normal or even elevated fat mass, but the muscle has severely atrophied and is partly replaced by fatty tissue infiltrating between the remaining muscle fibers. An MRI scan of the thigh of a sedentary 65-year-old looks entirely different from that of a same-age person who has maintained a lifelong walking habit, even if their external body weight appears nearly identical. The question for any American over 55 looking at their medical results is not whether their weight is acceptable, but what their muscle mass and walking speed are saying about the next 10 years. Walking speed is one of the strongest predictors of longevity that medicine has ever identified, according to a 2011 meta-analysis of 34,000 individuals led by Dr. Stephanie Studensky at the University of Pittsburgh. Individuals who walk slower than 80 centimeters per second after age 65 have double the mortality risk over the following 10 years compared to those who walk faster than 1 meter per second. Not cholesterol levels, not blood pressure, not any blood test. Your walking speed as you walk into your doctor's office is the most important medical information that many physicians still are not measuring. This is the true legacy of older generation Americans walking 15,000 steps a day. Their walking speed aged more slowly than ours, not because of better genetics, but because their muscles were in continuous use. Equally important is that older Americans today face a risk factor the previous generation did not have: social isolation, and the combination of low movement and social isolation simultaneously attacks both muscle and brain from two negative directions at once. Scientists from Harvard Medical School found that chronic social isolation elevates chronic cortisol levels, the hormone that destroys muscle tissue, while simultaneously suppressing the satellite cells needed to repair and rebuild muscle. The older American generation lived in community. They walked to their neighbors' homes. They worked alongside one another. They attended church. They encountered each other daily without needing to schedule an appointment. When you bring all of this together, it becomes obvious why a 50-year-old American bricklayer in Alabama in 1960 had better muscle health than a 50-year-old American living a modern lifestyle today. But at precisely this moment, science is also showing us that the solution is not to return to working as a bricklayer, but to redesign how we live so the body receives the mechanical signals it needs. And here is where older Americans today have one advantage that the previous generation never had. They know why, and they can do it deliberately rather than waiting for life to create the opportunity. That does not mean only walking. It means distributing movement throughout the entire day, standing up more frequently, walking around the house, going outside, climbing stairs, carrying things, tending a garden. Every moment of standing up and moving sends a mechanical signal to muscle cells, stimulating protein synthesis, triggering myokine release, and ensuring the brain receives a steady supply of BDNF. The previous American generation did not need to know this because their lives did it automatically for them. But modern life no longer does that, and that is precisely why this knowledge has become more important than it has ever been. And now that we understand the mechanism, now that we understand why the previous generation was healthier without ever going to a gym, we need to look squarely at what happens when we do nothing at all. People with severe sarcopenia lose the ability to perform basic daily living activities before they lose mobility entirely, which means they lose their independence before they lose their overall health. This drives the need for long-term care, and the average cost of long-term care in the United States is $100,000 per year for a room in a skilled nursing facility, according to 2023 Genworth data. $100,000 per year. That is the entire lifetime savings of many middle-class Americans, and it can disappear within 2 years if they need full long-term skilled care. Medicare does not cover most long-term care costs, which means older Americans and their families must pay out of pocket until they have spent down enough to qualify for Medicaid. Sarcopenia also significantly raises the risk of type 2 diabetes because muscle tissue consumes more than 80% of glucose from the blood. And as muscle declines, blood sugar rises without any change in diet whatsoever. Type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart failure, dementia, and falls are the 5 leading complications associated with sarcopenia, and they often arrive together in sequence, like a line of dominoes, once the process begins. But the most important thing to remember is this: that chain of dominoes is not inevitable, and science now has clear evidence that the process can be slowed, stopped, and in many cases, partially reversed. And the final question of this chapter on consequences is not about disease, it is about quality of life. What do you want to spend the last 10 years of your life actually doing? That is the question that all the data on sarcopenia, on myokines, on BDNF, on walking speed, are collectively pointing toward in a single direction: move. Not go to the gym 3 times a week and sit still for the remaining 41 hours, but move, distributed, continuous, throughout the day, every single day. And this is where we move from understanding the problem to what truly matters. What you can start asking your doctor about at your very next appointment. And the medical advances of the past 10 years have given us more tools than ever before to do that intelligently. Measuring muscle mass with DEXA scans is now available at most major American medical centers, and many geriatric specialists are beginning to include walking speed and grip strength assessment in their standard evaluation criteria. Beyond that, studies in the past 10 years have confirmed that combining walking with light resistance training, such as resistance band exercises or chair stand squats, is the most powerful combination for preserving and rebuilding muscle in adults over 65. But here is the most important information to bring to your doctor. These interventions work best when specifically designed for your current physical condition, and your doctor needs to know your starting point to guide you correctly. Modern geriatric medicine is advancing rapidly, and leading American medical centers like Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, and UCLA are building comprehensive muscle assessment programs that within the next few years may become standard routine care. The world of older Americans is changing, not only in medicine, but in how communities are designed. With more cities and suburbs adding sidewalks, walking parks, and pedestrian infrastructure that previous generations had and more recent generations lost. But you do not need to wait until your community is redesigned, because the person you have been waiting for is yourself, and your body is ready to receive those signals starting right now. If you are over 60 and watching this, the right question to ask your doctor at your next appointment is not whether you need to exercise, but where your walking speed, grip strength, and muscle mass currently stand on a clinical measurement scale. Those numbers, not your weight and not your BMI, are your actual health map for the next 10 to 20 years, according to current medical evidence. This is also why many progressive American geriatricians today describe walking not as lifestyle advice, but as the best over-the-counter medicine currently available. No prescription required, no gym membership needed, no special equipment, just a pair of supportive shoes and the awareness that with every step, you are doing something genuinely important for your entire body. Older Americans did not go to the gym because their life was the gym. Every walk to the store, every staircase climbed, every afternoon in the garden was the dose of medicine the body was asking for. And now you know what they never needed to know, because they never had to live without it. If there is one thing you can do differently starting tomorrow, it is not to join a gym, but to break up every hour of sitting with a short 2 to 5 minute walk anywhere inside your home or outdoors. A 2023 Columbia University study found that just 5 minutes of light walking after every hour of sitting is sufficient to reverse most of the metabolic damage caused by prolonged sedentary time. No marathon required, no gym membership needed, no muscle soreness required. Just move, frequently, throughout the entire day, the way the previous generation of Americans did it, without ever calling it exercise. Science will continue to study sarcopenia, myokines, BDNF, and walking speed in the decades ahead. And we will know far more about how to protect the healthy years at the end of life. 15,000 steps. That number did not change simply because we built more highways and gyms. But what can change is the question you will ask your doctor at your next appointment, and the first step you will take the moment you turn this screen off.